So it is with pleasure and honor that we welcome you, Herbie, dear Professor Dr. Herbert DREINER, into this special interview with our magazine, Trajectories in Physics, published by the Arab Physical Society. We aim to highlight your outstanding contributions in the field of physics, particularly on searches for physics beyond the standard model at colliders. Also, we would like you to share with us your insights on the extensive outreach effort you carried out at Bonn University, the Bonn Physics Show, for which you were awarded the HEP Outreach Prize of the European Physical Society in 2009.
Thank you.
Let me just introduce our magazine briefly. It aims to explain advanced research in the physical sciences and makes what would otherwise be inaccessible specialist knowledge understandable to the lay reader in the Arab world. And all this using simple terms in standard Arabic language. So I, Nidal Shma'un, and with me, Reem Berry from the editorial team of the magazine are very happy to meet you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay, so let me start, Herbie. Could you please give us a brief overview of your personal journey in theoretical physics? Where have you done your undergraduate, graduate studies, and what was your field of interest?
Okay, so I should maybe say I was born in the United States, and when I was 10, we moved to Germany, and I went to a high school in Aachen, Germany. That's way in the west of Germany on the border to Belgium and the Netherlands. And after completing my high school education, I went to Bonn University, which I happen to be back at now. And I did the equivalent undergraduate. We didn't have a bachelor's back then, but I did the equivalent undergraduate degree in Bonn. And Bonn has a very, very good mathematical training, so that was very helpful for the future. And then after 3 years in Bonn, I went to the University of Wisconsin, and in 5 years, I completed my PhD there in theoretical particle physics. And so I had 2 years of coursework and then 3 years of research. And my research advisor was Dimitri Nanopoulos, who's from Greece originally. And he's now a professor in Texas in the United States. And he's also a member of the Greek Academy of Sciences. And I originally did my PhD actually on the topics of related to string theory, string model building, and so more formal aspects in theoretical physics. But already during my PhD, I twice went for a summer to CERN. And at CERN, I was able to work with John Ellis, and I worked there also on closely related issues to experiments. Experiments at CERN, experiments at DAISY. And I then got my first postdoc at DAISY in Hamburg in Germany, which is a national laboratory. But then I had problems with the draft in Germany. And I was already a conscientious objector, so I would have had to do community service. Anyway, after 1 year, I went to Oxford. And then I spent 3 years, very enjoyable years in Oxford. And while my time in DAISY in Oxford, I really switched to more phenomenological, so issues more closely related to experiment. So I spent 3 years in Oxford, then I spent 2 years at the ETH Zurich. And while I was at ETH Zurich, at least once a month, I went to CERN also. And so worked very closely with the experimentalists at CERN. Then I got my first permanent job in a government laboratory outside of Oxford, the so-called the Rutherford Lab. I was there for 5 years. And now since 24 years, I'm at the University of Bonn. So that's my life.
Great. Okay. Dr. DREINER, can you elaborate on your specific area of research within high energy physics? Is it more to particle physics or to cosmology or to particle cosmology when big meets small?
So I mainly work on particle physics phenomenology, as we call it, so closely related to the work that's being done at the LHC at CERN. But I always have a little bit, so I would say maybe a quarter, that I would also do on particle astrophysics, or maybe a little bit less than a quarter. So
Oh,
I've looked at axions, exynos, and neutralino dark matter and things. So, but these are issues that directly grow out of, particle physics questions.
oh,
Okay.
great.
So, Harry, what do you consider to be the most promising advancements in particle physics today? Machine learning discoveries have been honored with Nobel Prize for Physics and Chemistry this year. And this led to some students doubting the benefit of working fundamental science while seeing AI, artificial intelligence, solve the physics problems. Any thoughts in this regard?
Not really, not much. So I don't work myself in machine learning. My understanding of the Nobel Prize was that the reason they got the Physics Nobel Prize was because they used physics theory. So the statistical understanding in theoretical physics to help develop their artificial intelligence models. So in some sense, it was very closely related to work, in physics. And so I personally find very promising, still promising, to continue working on LHC. I find there's very promising non-accelerator physics experiments. For example, the ice cube experiment on the South Pole. I mean, they've observed now for the first time, extragalactic neutrinos. They've observed tau neutrinos directly. And then also at CERN, we also have the phaser experiment. The phaser experiment was for the first time able to observe neutrinos directly produced at the LHC. So these are the highest energy neutrinos we've ever observed in man-made neutrinos we've ever observed. And so we can get a new handle there on the high energy aspects of neutrino physics. So these are the things I'm directly interested in.
Oh, great. Dr. Drainer, throughout your illustrious career, teaching and research-wise, have you had the chance to teach some Arab students? And in your opinion, what are the most significant issues confronting Arab youngsters wanting to specialize in theoretical physics? Is it lack of interest or funding in fundamental science, considering it as a luxurious field far from the regions, or more generally to the developing countries' aspirations and needs or desire of many students to immigrate and study abroad, leading to only few strong Arab schools with a solid tradition in science?
That was a bit much for me. So that seemed
Well,
like
question.
5 questions at once. Uh,
Not about
So
collaborators.
we have a broad
Yes.
section of students in Bonn. So in the master, so the undergraduate program in Bonn is in German and the German language, and the master's program and PhD program is in English. And we attract a large
Mhm.
number of students from abroad, and this includes Arab students, also Persian students, and North African students. But right now, the larger group is for some reason from India. And the Indian students are mixed, of course, Hindi and Muslim. And so I don't know, my impression is that the Arab students, maybe Nidal can say something about that. Their first step is usually via the ICTP in Trieste. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean,
Usually,
it can be considered,
yes.
I mean, uh, a very attractive place that Arab students can apply for and can have chance to go there. Yeah, the ICTP. Yeah, but perhaps her question was how to, let's say, advertise more the German universities in the Arab world. Many of the Arab students, they just look for the UK or the USA, whereas for I mean, me personally speaking, I would say the same level in Germany and UK. So why the German universities are not well known in the Arab world compared to the US and UK universities?
That's a very good question. We struggle with that. It's not just in the Arab world, so it's everywhere in the world. For some reason, the UK, USA somehow dominate. And also, I think even the ranking system is biased towards their type of university. And so the first thing you can say is the German universities are free. So we charge 0 tuition. And also so the only thing that you might have is if you want to do an undergraduate in Germany, you have a German language requirement. So we have students now coming from China, for example. They spend 1 year in Germany just learning German, and then they enter the German university with their German language, and they pay no tuition, and that ends up being cheaper than 4 years in America, because this would be 1 year language and 3 years undergraduate. With respect to the quality of research, I mean, we've regularly now had, physics Nobel laureates from Germany. We have much better research funding, I would say now in Germany than in the US. And so we attract a large amount of funding. And how to make it more attractive? I mean, in India, for example, somehow it started, and then it just, once people are here, then they tell back to their students to the university they came from. We also gain experience. It's hard for us to judge the quality of a university that we don't know. So we usually, take somebody, try them out. If they do well, then we take more students from that place. So we would have to somehow start, I guess. So we have had quite a few regularly students from Iran, but
Okay. Okay, so let me now change direction. So we here in the Arab Physical Society are carrying out a program of teaching and outreach activities, organizing, say, some winter summer schools, plus holding weekly specialist and non-specialist seminar and public talks. So now, could you tell the Arab readers about your project of physics show? How it started and where it went and its aims? Could we hope someday to see it held in one Arab city, or at least a possibility to watch it online?
you can definitely watch it online. I can even send you a link for a filmed version of the show in English. I can do that, tomorrow. I'm traveling, but next week. And so the physics show, when I was a student in Wisconsin, I told you earlier, and in Wisconsin there was a professor, he performed physics shows. And he basically just showed experiments, he explained them, he was a little bit entertaining, it was fun, but it was just him alone on stage, and 2 or 3 students would maybe help him, perform the experiments. And then my first professor job was here in Bonn, and then after a year, so in Bonn, which is very different from many places, for example, in England, we have a very large collection of demonstration experiments. So for us, it's very normal to physics, the introductory physics lectures are taught with lots of demonstration experiments. And we have a professional full-time person who takes care of these experiments, and he presents them and he repairs them and he builds new ones. And so I approached this person after I'd been in Bonn for a year and said, would he be interested in jointly doing a physics show? And my idea, though, was to involve the students, the university students, heavily, so that they should develop and perform the show. And so that the two of us, I would just be the manager and he would help with the technical sides. So these experiments are sometimes, quite complicated. And it took the first, so I was teaching classical mechanics at the time. So this was a 2nd-year course at the time. And our term goes over Christmas. And so before the Christmas break, I presented the project to the students and I told them to think about it. And then after the Christmas break, like 25 students signed up. And so that was in January 2002. And then in November 2002, we performed the first 2-hour show. And we have a big physics lecture hall that seats 550 people. The first show, we had 700 people there. It was just unbelievable. And after that, we basically, with each new group of students, we developed a new show. And so in some sense, the first target group for me are the university physics students. So the physics show is, for me, I give the university physics students a chance to use their knowledge and then, talk out to the public. But they develop the show. They have to think about, how do I explain an experiment to the general public? And so in some sense, we are training every year 20 new, physics students in speaking to the public in general terms. And then, of course, the shows themselves are addressed to the general public. We usually say kids aged 10 or older. And then once we started having students doing this, we then had a group of students with whom we could do more advanced projects. So then in 2013, we developed a show on particle physics. And for that, I can send you the script also. It's on the archive. And with that particle physics show, so there we address an advanced topic in physics. The normal shows in physics just mainly deal with classical physics, mechanics, electrodynamics, waves, acoustics. And in the particle physics show, we of course partly have to work with analogies, but we have a 2-hour show. Oh, the big thing about our shows are also that it's always a play. So we don't just show the experiments, we have a storyline, and the experiments become part of the story. Okay, and that helps to hold the attention of the audience. The students, the physics students also enjoy, developing a play, showing their artistic side, anyway, with that particle physics show, we've traveled throughout Europe. So we first went to England, then we were in Italy, Denmark. We twice went to Spain, we went to Portugal, and then was the pandemic, and we didn't travel for a while. Oh, we went to Amsterdam also. And then this year we started traveling again, and we went to Ljubljana in Slovenia and to Trieste in Italy. And I'm planning right now for a trip next year to Warsaw and Krakow in Poland. So we
Okay, so
travel.
we hope that one day you can come to the Arab world
Yes.
also.
It's
Cairo,
very
say.
complicated. So because we have lots of equipment. So, for example, we wanted to now, after Brexit, we wanted to go again to England. It's impossible. The requirements from the border control with all the equipment, identifying everything was so much, and and how would we, how would we get to Syria? I mean, I guess we could
Or
drive
to Egypt, say. Syria is
we
really
could
Yes.
dangerous
drive through
now, or
Turkey, I guess.
hopefully it would be
We hope
peaceful, yeah, but
Yes.
we hope to have one in Egypt.
So yeah. So I guess there we could get on a boat somehow. Anyway, I've never thought about it. So the furthest we've been is Portugal so far, which was, a 2.5-day drive to get there. But we have, one big van full of equipment, and I guess the students can fly. So to Portugal, the students then flew. And anyway, I can send you the description of the particle physics show as a link. And it describes all the experiments with photos, and the dialogue of the play is also in there.
Okay, so let me digress on this point. What are the concepts you assume necessary for understanding the experiments you show by the general public who attend the show? Students who just enroll secondary schools would barely know about Newton's law in motion or about the atomic structure. So, how could you explain some deep concepts like quarks or gravitation to this audience in non traditional format, far from lectures or demonstrations?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the shows that we do. So next week we're doing a Christmas show. This show is addressed, we say, to kids age 10 or older. Now, at age 10 in Germany, typically the students have not had any physics yet. So we really just use general, but of course the physics are also more classical, straightforward, I should say, physics. With the particle physics show, we explicitly say 15 or older. And at that stage, people have had more physics. We assume in some sense that they already know that atoms exist. And we do all the same talk about, proton, electron, neutron. We introduce them, but we introduce them very briefly. And so, I mean, you can read the show and get a feeling for, what level you think that is. So we felt there's also enough entertainment that people don't always feel like they have to understand everything, that they can see like, oh, I find this interesting. Let me go have a look at this again. And so it's very hard to strike the right level. And part of our job is to kind of, or we feel is to lower the barrier. So we want to show that physics is fun, that physics is interesting. We don't expect everybody to walk out and understand everything that we talk about, but that they maybe are at least interested enough in it to, look again at it.
Okay, great.
So from where you select the physics show students? I mean, are they only graduate students in your group, or there are even some undergraduates? And what about the barrier of language when you go to foreign countries? The explanations
Yes.
are done in English or in local languages in case you have students with that language as mother tongue?
Yeah, so the students are chosen in the beginning. Well, they're not chosen. So in the beginning, next year, September, we now do a new show every 2 years. Next year, September, we want to do a new show with the students at the end of the undergraduate first year. So we go into the undergraduate class towards the end of the first semester and say who is interested, and anybody who's interested can join. And then for the advanced topics, it's almost more self-selective though. Also, the people who really enjoy doing it and want to continue are usually those that are better at it. And so I would say like half of them then continue for the more advanced topics, with traveling around and everything. And the language, yes, that's a big problem. So for example, we went to the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they speak very good English. Then we went to Portugal, and in Portugal, they also speak very good English. So historically, Portugal has strong connections with England, and Portugal also does not dub the movies on television. They show them in English with Portuguese subtitles. And in the Netherlands and Scandinavia, it's the same. We went to Denmark, English, no problem. Then we went to Spain, big problem.
Yeah.
And so in Spain, and the issue actually just came up today. I was talking with the people in Poland, and they brought up the same issue. And so I don't know how good the English is in Poland so far, but but in Madrid, what we then did is we had 2 projectors behind the stage, one where we, for example, showed the experiment or whatever we were showing, and on the other one, we had a short explanation of the experiment in Spanish. Okay, so that at least the basic physics concepts are explained in the local language. And we had in the group, you've met Victor, right, Nidal?
Yeah.
So Victor was part of the physics show also, and so he was able to write the Spanish text. So today I wrote to the group in Poland and saying, we don't have anybody here who speaks Polish, so it would be helpful if you could provide, and then we would of course provide the text in English. And well, actually with Google Translate, it's probably pretty easy. So, but the language is a problem. And so,
I heard you went to China also,
we went to China, yes, exactly. So we went to China, but we didn't bring any experiments because, again, that was so complicated to bring them. And we went for 2 weeks, and then we trained a group of Chinese students using local equipment to put on a show in Chinese. So for Chinese high school students. So what we did is we first trained them. We only spoke English. Their English was pretty good. From the university students' English. These were physics graduate students, and in Beijing. And so we first, it's not trivial. There's certain basic things you have to learn when you present an experiment on stage so that the audience can follow you. So we taught them these basic things in English, and then they developed a little story. Their show was like an hour long. And then at some point, they switched to Chinese. And then a Chinese professor also joined to make sure that the physics explanations were correct in Chinese, because I could say nothing to that. My Chinese is 0. My Arabic is also 0, except maybe salam alaikum or something. And, so that worked actually quite well in Beijing. And in principle, the idea is to go back again. We were going to go back. We already had booked the tickets in 2020. And then, of course, the pandemic. So we might go back next year. Not next year, 2026.
Okay.
But so one question would be,
Okay.
in the Arabic world, is how good, I mean, in your universities, do you have demonstration experiments or not? Equipment, how good is your equipment?
I mean, that would depend which university. So here in Damascus, you know the situation. But I was thinking that me and Professor Shaban, if you could do that in the future in Zuwel City. In Zuwel
Yeah.
City, I mean, in his Center of Advanced Physics, I think it can be done. But sure, there would be the problem of the travel and of the language. Of the language, there would be easy solution, like what you did in China. I think it can be done in the Arab world easily. See,
Yes,
so
I
it's
think so.
just we'll have to find a way for the funding and then for finding the correct timing.
Yes. So, I mean, maybe the simplest thing would be if I travel there once and look at what they have, and then it's easier to discuss. So if I just go alone, maybe with one technician from Bonn. But
Yeah.
are there like direct ferries from Greece to Egypt?
Reem, you can tell us. Normally there are. From Alexandria, the ferry to go to Lebanon to Cyprus. I remember that. I think to Greece it might be possible also, or to Turkey. Yeah.
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 Yes.
That would be interesting if you
Yes.
bring all the equipment.
Yeah, so we just have to get one
Yes.
van
Go,
there.
Reem. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Drainer, do you think carrying out such fun activities regularly in museums and cultural centers in the Arab world can help in getting the kids interested in science and generally in raising the public awareness of the importance of the fundamental science in the Arab world? Do you think it's important?
Yes, definitely. So any way that you can interact with whatever interesting. So if you have a good museum or if you have a good, even just good talks, if you have people that can give good, inspiring talks. But so our show is based on the fact that it's fun to see the actual thing happening on stage live. So you can see
Mm,
an experiment, a surprising experiment. We have many experiments which are surprising. And so then we explain them afterwards. And once you're surprised, your mind opens up and you're willing to
yes,
accept or interested in an explanation. And so I think that should work anywhere. I mean, and
of course.
yeah.
Okay, I will follow up with this question and return into science. Where do you see particle physics heading for? Large Hadron Collider costed an enormous amount of money,
Yes.
and next generation of colliders need definitely international collaboration or funding. Can the rich Arab countries help in this regard?
Uh, Definitely. So, I mean, CERN definitely welcomes, as far as I can tell, a wide range of countries to join, and that's probably the
Mhm.
cheapest way. But what is the exact future? So the near future is that I'm going to retire. So
Oh,
I retire in 5 years, and in the next 5 years, the LHC will still be running. I do hope we have a follow-up project to the LHC that's being widely discussed now in Europe, various options.
mm,
This can only work, as you say, in an international collaboration. I mean, Germany contributes the largest portion of the money at CERN, but lots of European countries contribute. And I mean, we've recently brought in countries that historically were not part of CERN, for example, Slovenia, Romania, and these countries that were behind the Iron Curtain. Most of them now, as far as I know, have joined CERN in some capacity. Yes, so the future of CERN, the future of particle physics is difficult because it is very, very expensive and the experiments are very, very difficult and complicated. And yeah, and I hope we spend money on that instead of on bombs and airplanes. But
Yeah. Yeah. So here, the rich Arabs, especially those of the Gulf Arabs, I mean, they are rich countries, but how they can help in this regard. Okay.
yes,
And here, I mean,
they can definitely also help
since the
bringing physics,
LHC,
so bringing
So, in this regard, the NHC proved what was predicted of the existence of the Higgs particle. However, no conclusive signals for physics beyond standard model. No SUSY, no dark matter till now. Can this be the end of the story and no beyond standard model? What are your insights here, Herbie?
I have no insights. So it is sad or disappointing that nothing has been found, but I mean, that's when you look, Columbus, started sailing west and he thought he was going to Asia and he actually hit something else. And fortunately, otherwise he would have died. And so when you explore, you have to look in unknown regions and you do not know what's going to be there. And so we as a mankind have to decide whether we want to continue to explore in this, high energy regime of particles to understand the fundamental concepts in nature. But we have to balance, is it worth it? It's because it's financially, it's super expensive. And we can only do that if we do it together. But I have no immediate preference to where to go, where I think the next new physics should or will happen. I think we have to explore as many possibilities as we can afford.
Okay. Okay, so now a question forwarded to you from some colleagues and readers. How do you see physics after 10 years? So it's a related question. What would be the most active field in the domain of science, according to you?
I mean, 10 years in the future now?
Yeah.
10 years from now. Oh, as I said, I'll be retired.
Yeah, from now. But still, it will follow up.
Yes. Oh, it's a very good question. I don't have a very good answer, though. So I don't know. I mean, it's always good to bet on the brain. The brain is very hard to understand. I guess in some sense, one is asking, if I were a student now, what field would I enter? If I were just finishing high school. I find, entering physics is always worthwhile because your training is so broad and so fundamental that you can do many things. So my best friend from high school, he got a PhD in string theory and he ended up doing brain research, physics-related brain modeling. And I have another friend, he did his PhD in particle physics and he's now working in medical imaging, using physics. He works, connected to a hospital, and he's the physicist on the radiation therapy treatment, for cancer and other complicated things. So, and both of them started out training physics. So I think if you train in physics, it opens many doors for you. But what those doors will be in 10 years, I don't know.
Okay. Finally, what advice would you give to the future scientists and administrators aspiring to follow in your footsteps, especially those from the Arab world?
That's ooh. So the first thing I would say is, be open. So for example, I did lots of work. I worked in the high school theater drama group when I was in high school and thought, okay, that's the end of that. But then suddenly this thing with the physics show came and now I'm like a full-time theater person also. So my advice there would be, try to be open. Don't think of yourself as fixed, that you just study one thing. How does a car engine work? Car engines are now all changing. They're changing to electric from diesel or whatever, and try to be open and try to get as broad an education and thorough education as you can. And in my opinion, that's what physics is and does. And it gives you a wide range of possibilities, including theater and giving public talks but also developing cancer treatment or learning about the brain. These are all physicists that do this. And so Nidal also knows Jamie Tattersall. He works using artificial intelligence to help make cars self-driving, so make cars intelligent. He's also a particle physicist. So, but then of course there's particle physics itself. Personally, I would probably right now go into astroparticle physics. I think that would be my personal preference, just because I find it exciting. And there's new experiments coming on, but that would be for the next 5 years. You know, who knows what will be in 10 years. And so I don't have any wise words, I think,
Okay.
for the long-term future.
Okay.
So are you
Okay.
both sitting in
So Herbie,
Damascus?
we thank you very much.
Where are you sitting,
I am in
Reem?
Damascus, whereas Reem in Cairo.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. The Arab Physical Society
Okay.
headquarters, let's say, it's based in Cairo. We should thank you very much, Harry, for giving us this opportunity to interview you. Would you mind if we can post this recording, but sure, after doing the montage
That's
of
fine.
this interview on the Arab Physical Society YouTube channels, no problem?
That's no problem. Yeah.